It's known as the Schumpf Collection in Mulhouse, France, and it is world renowned. Over 400 automobiles dating way back to contemporary times. And as you'd expect, they're Peugeots and Citroëns, but it's famous for its Bugattis. The essence of the Schlumpf Collection is the obsession of Fritz Schlumpf, who with the assistance of his brother amassed the largest automobile collection in the world. And Ettore Bugatti, the builder of the star car of the collection. There are more Bugattis here than anywhere in the world. As a wealthy young man, Fritz Schlumpf began racing cars, like this one, but was forced to stop racing and so channeled his obsession into collecting. This is Schlumpf's Bugatti Type 35 that he raced. The Type 35 was a phenomenally successful race car in the late 1920s. One like it won the first Monaco Grand Prix in 1929. The collection is an encyclopedia of the automobile and a history of the 20th century. The main hall is huge and as bright as a Target store. What is interesting is how common innovations and things today can date back, like this French 1911 Pilon Tonneau 40, with the passenger seat folding forward to give access to the rear seat.
This prototype two-seater sports car is the result of the short-lived collaboration between the Alsace manufacturer Émile Matisse and Ettore Bugatti, who had just ended his contract with de Dietrich.
The car was dubbed Hermes, from the name of the Greek god who protected travelers.
The engine is huge, displacing 12 litres. It's a four-cylinder inline engine delivering 92 horsepower at 1,350 revs per minute. It has a so-called F-head design with the inlet valve in the cylinder head and the exhaust valve in the cylinder block, a 4-speed gearbox and a clutch with a single disc placed inside the engine flywheel. It said that it was capable of speeds of up to 135 kilometers per hour.
The Hermes model was relatively successful among connoisseurs, but it was dogged by reliability problems. As Matisse wrote to Bugatti,
"You will be aware of the serious problems we're having with the Hermes cars. In fact, not one single owner is satisfied, and almost every sale ends in a court case."
the two partners separated, and Ettore Bugatti set up on his own. In July 1907, he brought out his first prototype, a license for which was purchased by the Deutz Company of Cologne, Germany.
Although Peugeot achieved a signal success with his BB model, its reputation was built on the bigger cars he was building at the same period.
And although it's also true that only 428 of the Type 146 model, like the one on show here, were built in all, they contributed to the marque's excellent reputation.
In the years before the outbreak of war in 1914, these models were built in the factories that Armand Peugeot had built in northern France, because as success grew, his Franche-Comté factories in eastern France could no longer cope with demand.
This beautiful torpedo is fitted with a 4.5-litre four-cylinder engine in two cylinder blocks. It was very comfortable and could easily achieve speeds of 70 kilometers per hour fully loaded.
And since the generals liked big, fast cars, 146s were in widespread demand as staff cars.
This 1913 Peugeot is even more interesting when you think that this is what the car looked like 100 years ago. In one sense, it's very different from today, but in another, things are not so different. With the conclusion of World War I came the classic interwar years of motor racing, like the Mercedes-Benz Silver Arrows.
Le duel se résumera à celui entre Caracciola et Nuvolari. Caracciola aime la pluie et il gagnera en mai sur Mercedes, mais cette fois, Mercedes est contraint à jouer les seconds plans. C'est un petit jeune qui débute, qui vient de la moto, il s'appelle Rosemeyer. Il gagne...
The 8-cylinder W125, the car in the back, had almost 600 horsepower. It went 190 miles per hour in 1937 and was considered the most powerful race car until the Can-Am cars and the turbocharged F1 cars of the 1980s. This 1936 Alfa Romeo 8C epitomizes Italian design. With a 2.9-liter engine, it won the 1936 Mille Amiga. The top 4 places were won with an 8C, and first through third were entered by Scuderia Ferrari.
Among the array of formidable sports cars manufactured in the 1930s, the Maserati Type 2000 stands out for its typically Italian elegance.
This car, which belonged to one Mr. Pedrazzini from Lugano in Switzerland, had its handsome coachwork installed at the factory. Only 6 Maserati 2000s were ever built.
The 2000 is also outstanding mechanically. The supercharged inline 8-cylinder 2-litre engine with twin overhead camshafts is a particularly brilliant piece of engineering that develops over 150 brake horsepower.
In the same year as the 2000 was introduced, Maserati launched a Grand Prix racer that was to dominate all the major racing events. You can see some of these Maserati greats in the section devoted to racing cars.
Born in Italy, Vittorio Bugatti built stylish and fast cars, but saw himself as an artist. Bugatti's factory was in Mulsheim, not far from Mulhouse, where the Schlumpfs had their textile business. In the early 20th century, this area was in the Alsace district of Germany.
As you may have seen with the 1902 Serpollet, aerodynamic lines were a concern for some manufacturers. Ettore Bugatti, who had tried out the cigar shape for the 1922 Grand Prix de Strasbourg, made a great show in 1923 for the Grand Prix de Tours, with this highly streamlined body that earned the car the nickname of the Tank.
This revolutionary machine was built around an inline 8-cylinder 2-litre engine. The very short chassis was given a very enveloping body that covers the wheels like a very thick aircraft wing. It held the road well up to a certain speed, after which it became very difficult to handle, as there were problems with the airflow beneath the very low-slung vehicle.
Bugatti built 5 cars of this type for the Grand Prix de Tours. The only running in they got was the trip from Molsheim to Tours, which was visibly not enough, since the best of the 5 could only come in third, literally outclassed by the powerful sunbeams.
This car is one of the survivors of that race. It was reconditioned after the Tour race and used to set speed records, like the Pont alongside, which clocked 189 kilometers an hour on the straight stretch near Arpajon outside Paris.
A road version of the Type 35 is this 1927 Type 43 Cabriolet. And then there is the totally stylish Type 35B Sport, capturing the late 1920s Art Deco style, something perfect to cruise the Grand Corniche above Nice to Monaco.
Less than 100 of the Bugatti Type 50 were built between 1930 and 1933.
The car has a 5-litre twin overhead camshaft engine derived from the American Miller engine, like the Type 51 you may have seen in the racing car section. With its lobe compressor and twin carburetors, it developed between 200 and 220 brake horsepower, depending on the model.
This model was rebodied after the war and repainted in the distinctive style of Monsieur Michelin. The boss of the Clermont-Ferrand tire factory had adopted the light blue bonnet as his own particular sign.
Another interesting particularity of the car displayed here is that it was equipped with a Kotal electromagnetic transmission.
The Kotal transmission allowed the driver to change gears without depressing the clutch, using a small lever located near the steering wheel. The resulting driving comfort was highly appreciated, and the transmission was widely used by luxury marques like De La Haye, Delage or Salmson.
Out of all of the fabulous cars in the collection, the star is the Bugatti Royale.
Ettore wanted to create the most beautiful car in the world, the longest, fastest, most powerful and expensive car of all time, the car of kings. Let's take a closer look.
It was more than 6 meters long, weighed more than 6 tons, and its wheels were almost a meter in diameter, which certainly makes it the biggest. Although some American limousines manufactured today are even longer, the Royale can perhaps still be said to hold the record for having, with its endless bonnet, the smallest passenger cell compared to the overall length of the car, especially when bodied as a 2-seater Estes Roadster.
Was it the most powerful? Undoubtedly. The prototype engine had a cylinder capacity of 15 litres, 30 times that of the Fiat 500. Even with the cylinder capacity reduced to 13 litres, it was the biggest engine ever put into a so-called tourer.
And was it the fastest? Well, it certainly was at the time. Jean Bugatti pushed the Estes Roadster to over 205 kilometers an hour on the Montlhéry circuit. Having said that, it wouldn't have been a good idea to do that on the road, because with its drum brakes, it would probably have taken several kilometers to come to a standstill.
And finally, was it the most expensive? Well, yes, it was. The chassis alone cost more than 500,000 old French francs, which was twice what it cost for a big Hispano, body and all, 20 years' wages for the average worker. It's been estimated that if one of the 6 remaining cars was sold today, it could fetch 80 million French francs, or 12 million euros. Does that seem rational to you?
No, but then nothing was rational about this car.
And finally, the Bugatti Type 57. A blend of sportiness and elegance. It doesn't look like there's a straight line anywhere. It is Bugatti's obsession for stylish beauty and attention to exquisite detail. The Schumpf Collection is a bit off of the beaten path, so if you want to come, take the train from Paris to Stuttgart, get off in Strasbourg for a couple of days, you'll eat well being in the Alsace, and make a day trip to Mulhouse. It's an hour train ride. Take the tram number 1 from the station to the front of the museum. Return to Strasbourg, and then on to Stuttgart for Porsche and Mercedes-Benz.